Okay, so the last theory is Leiningers' theory of culture, care, diversity, and universality. And I felt like this was the theory that would apply the most to my work because, in a sense, racism inherently implies that there's a difference in culture, that there's a diversity, that there's a difference between the healthcare provider or the nurse and the patient. And I thought it was really interesting, and I'll talk about this more when I go through the criteria of examining the theories, that the developer of this theory was born in 1925. And I found it interesting that she was kind of a visionary in the sense that in 1925 and, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, when most of her work was done, like this was the civil rights era, like this is when all of this stuff is new. Like to us, I feel like we are well aware that we work with diverse populations, but the fact that she had to create a theory about this just tells you that it wasn't a common occurrence for nurses to consider this in their practice. And the concepts in the theory are cultural care, preservation, accommodation, and repatterning. And I don't know, part of me was kind of like, is this the beginning of diversity training? I hope that as nurses, we wouldn't see this as, well, let me just read a book about Asian Americans or about African Americans and then apply that knowledge to the person in front of me, but that we would be genuine in our curiosity about each patient that we encounter and even each person, right? Our colleagues, our friends. For example, I have my best friend is African American. Actually, she's Jamaican Canadian. So her parents are Jamaican and she was born in Canada and grew up in Canada, but moved to the States about 10 years ago. And she gets a lot of comments from patients about her hair and about her skin color and how she's very light skinned. And I just think this theory, understanding, from her perspective, she's the nurse practitioner and she has to be aware of the culture of her patients, but also patients have to be aware of the culture and ethnicity and background of their providers, right? I don't expect my Caucasian colleagues to understand that my Hispanic patients are not going to give up rice, potatoes, and tortillas. That's something that's unique to being Hispanic and the diet, right? So I understand that, but I am also of the same ethnicity. So I think this theory is super practical and applicable, and the dimensions of culture and social structure have to be considered. We have to consider socioeconomic status and financial status and education level, all of those things. So I'll speak a little bit more about this when I compare all the theories.